What up, guys? Jason Geiman here, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about who knows what. Probably going to be about some permanent lighting, but probably a whole lot of business stuff and pricing. That's what we was talking before we got started here. And so that is what we will be hitting on and where we will be going to help you get more business, to grow your business, to whatever you may need. So tonight I actually have someone on here that is like super duper smart. He is a brother of someone that I've had on here too. His name is Fred, and this is Tyler. And Tyler's not half as goofy as Fred is. Actually, I just got done talking to Fred yesterday. He called me, was asking me about respirators. And let's talk a little bit about safety on the pressure washing side. Just because I don't want you all getting hurt, man. It is something that is dangerous, and it is definitely something that you want to make sure that you are staying safe and you are not doing something stupid. And this does go with Christmas lights too, because if you hit electric lines or something along those lines, it could kill you. I do know the number one killer for window cleaners is the water-fed pole, and it can be very bad for you. So we don't want that to happen. But before we get started here, let's see who we got in here. We got Trisha on It's Light Time. We got Mr. Ron from out in Texas. What's up, Ron? We got Nathan Brinker. I'm interested for tonight. That is Fred's brother. I know that is Fred's brother. It don't look like him. Kind of does, but it doesn't. And then we got Info Comeback. So excited to get started reading Profit First right now. I can't thank you enough for all the help. Yes, I would agree with that book. That is a great book. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. We got Wash Pros. All right, so let's get started here with Mr. Tyler. Tyler, just tell me a little bit. Who are you? Where are you from? And just kind of that just there.
So as I mentioned, I am Fred Zimmerman's brother. I'm not usually in the lighting industry or anything like that. I actually started out, I grew up in Colorado, and I eventually graduated from CU Boulder in aerospace engineering. Not really something that I enjoyed, so I went into appliance repair, became a lead tech and stuff across the region here, and became an investor in companies, read a lot about companies, reading quarterly reports, understanding them, and business became a very big passion of mine, although I didn't ever actually start a business. So I kind of worked my way into helping CLC, Christmas light contractors, run their business a little bit. I just kind of advise, and in that process, I kind of realized that they are a temporary or seasonal company. And so I kind of started understanding that they're going to have some complications with working around getting SBA loans and things like that if they don't have a year-round income. So I pushed into permanent lighting and saw such a great opportunity. I opened up my own company for permanent lighting.
Awesome. I think I took care of the echoing problem. Let me know if I did. That was my fault. I had my speakers on. Good, you fixed it. Good. Awesome. So the one thing that I love about Tyler is he can look at the numbers of your business. He can look at that and know whether you are doing well or you are not doing well. We had talked to, actually Jeremy Main was here. We had dinner when we were down in Florida, and Jeremy was like, man, he is so smart. He can look at things. And that's what's cool about this as we talk tonight. And so before we get into the permanent lighting and all of that good stuff, what are some things that make either businesses successful or businesses fail?
I would say over relying on potential as opposed to maximizing profitability is a big problem. So everybody sees the potential. They think they're going to do there, and they think that they're going to get there through some magical way. But the reality is, especially when you're starting a company, it goes down to hard work, right? You actually have to put in the work to make things happen. And then you got to set you got to set schedules, boundaries, and a structure for your company so that way processes are easily systematically repeatable. Um, and you got to set up a system. I would say that in general, though, when you think about a company, you should start thinking about from the ground up. How do I make this? What is my business plan going to be? Right? Like, what is an overall business plan? Not just I'm going to go out there and sell a bunch of jobs, or I'm just going to buy this product and resell this product or something like that. The biggest thing I would say is you have to have the right people in place. You have to have the right order or the process or whatever, and then you just have to be able to have a genuine good product or service. So
So a lot of people fail on the systems, and I always say whatever you fail at a system when you're small, when it might be a little thing, but when you get bigger, it just magnifies it. That's what I realized when we went from 200,000 to getting to a million. The problems we had at 200,000 were little, but when we got to a million, they just became a bigger magnifying glass on that. And a lot of it comes down to systems, and as we talk about that, systems are probably the best thing that people hate to do, right? That's the number one thing that nobody wants to come up with systems. They just, because I've done it this way forever, or it works, or I've never figured that out. And those are things that, can hurt us in the end.
yeah, especially when you're an owner, you think you're above your own systems, so it makes it difficult to hold yourself accountable.
And that's kind of funny because usually when people screw up stuff, I always say, "Hey, did you get those before and after pictures?" Oh, you know what, man, I forgot all about those. Well, that's why you have a system, is so that you don't forget all about that and lose money and hurt yourself in the end. So, all right. So, Fred is actually, he started Christmas lights, and that's how I met Fred. And we go back a long time. And so Fred used to always make fun of me because I made real simple videos and how of breaking things down. And so over the time, Fred was one that he was a super cheap dude. He never liked to raise his prices. He was always scared about raising prices, about asking for higher, because he was scared to do that. And so as I was teaching people to start and grow businesses, Donovan kind of came into the play, and Donovan started doing his Christmas light business. In his first year, I think he did like 17,000. His next year, he did like 85,000. In year 3, he did $250,000, which was really year 2 in Christmas lights. And so after that, Fred started listening to what I had said, and then a couple years later go by. Now Tyler comes in and starts learning about. Actually, I guess, did Fred start doing the permanent lighting, or did you kind of jump into the permanent lighting right away?
Well, Fred's definitely the one that first saw potential in the product a year ago or so, 2 years ago. Fred and Donovan both wanted to try to figure out, a way to go year round and do lighting products. The problem with it is that it was they couldn't find a product that would work in a good business model for them. It was just never going to make enough profit. So then at some point, I kind of took it over and helped steer the product into a way that was essentially repeatable, so it could be scalable for a business, and it also was very profitable.
So let's talk a little bit about permanent lighting. What do we need to know about the goods and bads about permanent lighting?
Yeah, so the good is it's a product that not many people have on their house yet, right? And it's a product that's growing very, very quickly across the United States. So there's a lot of potential. The bad side of that is a lot of people don't know what it is or know what it is. So traditional means of advertising may not be as effective as Christmas lights, which everybody knows exists. So looking around and trying to do, let's say, like a SEO service or something like that. Well, you're only going to attract people that are actually searching for permanent lighting or something like that, which is maybe 1 or 2% of the population. So you have to come up with different ideas, different ways that you're going to come up with generate your leads, I would say, unless you want to go into that, you want to fight for those 1 or 2% of people that know what it is. Then you're going to probably go into pricing battles or something like that. But I'd say that's one thing. The other good news is, so permanent lighting you put up one time, right? And if you get the right product, you're not going up there repairing it very often. The bad of it is the stigmatism for RGB lighting is that it's had a lot of faults, a lot of connectivity issues, a lot of just reliability complaints and stuff like that. It's also very expensive. So it's an expensive product. And so you have to think about your customers' needs and come up with solutions for that, and how to present it, explain it, and offer options that help pay for it. No different than what the solar panel industry did across America. So things like that. I could go
Indirect
on.
marketing, it's kind of, you're kind of educating the market. It's kind of like what roof cleaning was a couple years ago when nobody knew that you could clean up the roof, right? You're kind of educating them what they need or what they want. And so, I know one of the competitors, they've been hitting the radio a lot, the Christian radio and the conservative radio, and they've been hammering that a lot. And so it is important that we do market no matter what it is. And even with marketing, we were talking about this a little bit before we get on here. You don't have to have the best product. You just got to know how to market, right? I know a lot of people don't believe that, but that is so true at the end of it. So many people get into the ditches of, I got to be the best permanent lighting installer, I got to be the best pressure washer, I got to be the best whatever. And at the end of the day, if nobody knows about you, you ain't nothing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But
And then in fact, I mean, I would say companies that can market far exceed companies that have a better product, or not a better product, better product, better service, because they get to people that don't know that you exist. So the better product, better service, if they're relying on word of mouth and stuff like that, it's going to slow your growth down tremendously.
So I was thinking about this today too. Would permanent lighting be fitted for permanent lighting, or would it be more of a Christmas light permanent lighting, or would it be kind of part of landscape lighting?
So that's the crazy thing. So it's never been considered for landscape lighting before, but we are getting people that are starting to recognize. And part of the reason why is because permanent lighting has never had products that pair in the same app as a total solution that allow you to use landscape lighting or structural architectural lighting, things like that, and pair it in with roofline lighting. But what you're finding is some of the guys that are in landscape lighting, they're starting to see that there's products out there now, like the one that I work with and stuff. They're starting to see that, hey, look at this. This product has some landscape lights that we can tie in. This has some light bulbs that are in fixtures, soffit lighting that we can tie in. We can tie this whole system in on one app. And so I would say that that's the bigger industry that it's starting to go to, but it's definitely not the industry that has been targeted originally. It was targeted for permanent holiday lighting, right? So Christmas lights, essentially.
So if anybody has any questions about permanent lighting or anything, you can put them up there, and I will read through them and do this. If more and more homes get permanent lighting, how would that affect house washing with the
So
bleach and stuff like that?
yeah, so what I would say is, bleach can obviously affect a bunch of different products or materials or whatever. These products, especially when you're talking about the product that I work with, so there's two products that I work with, Inception and Minlian. The rest of them require cutting and splicing, and so I would say that when you're dousing them with bleach and submerging them in water or spraying with water, there's possible issues. So you definitely want to pick the product that is going to be the most reliable. I like Minley and Inception because one of the biggest things is there's never any cutting or splicing. It's all pre-terminated connections. It's all UL listed products that come into the United States. It's plug and play, and everything's O-ringed and resilient to whatever you're going to throw at it. So
And UL, and that is important that it is UL listed, so that way kind of takes the liability off of you if something would happen.
exactly, yes.
So Jeremy put a good point on here too. He just said, marketing is very important, but 100% agree. And you need to answer your phone when they call. And this is so important that I see so many. It doesn't matter what business you're in. This is probably the most important thing that you can do is answer your phone, right? This is one that I see so many people. They're like Jason, and they don't answer their phone, and you look, and then a lot of you don't call them back when you don't answer the phone. So it is important that you answer the phone and you get to where you want to be at. Um, you know, I've talked about Jeremy before. He literally was on the garbage truck. He 3 years ago was throwing garbage in the back of a garbage truck. That was his job. He did it for 17, 18 years, and he started his business. And now last year he did almost three quarters of $1 million in business. And so it is important that we answer the phone, do what we say we're going to do, and make sure that we have to do that happen. This is a good question right here for sure. Do you have to be certified to install it? And if you do, where do you got to get it at?
So on nearly every product for permanent lighting, you do have to be certified. The one product that you definitely do not have to be certified on is Minlian. As we CLC and myself and Minlian all developed this product together, and that was one of the barriers to entry we want to take away. If you guys are familiar with Christmas Light Contractors, we provide a lot of free content on YouTube, on the Facebook page, and stuff like that. And it helps you. Like, we provided a bunch of content. How do you install this product? It literally will walk you through it. Not to say that like the other installations and trainings aren't worthwhile. They absolutely are. If they give real world experience, you're going out there, you're installing it, then it's totally worth it. But what I would say is that every other place, they try to put up like a little bit of a hurdle to make sure that you can't get into the industry unless you're willing to, pay for something that isn't really necessary. But like I said, with Inception, for instance, you do have to be certified, right? So,
And there is some states that you got to be certain. Fred was saying that you had to be certified or something for in his state in Connecticut.
so it all depends. It's not that you have to be certified for the product. You have to be able to install low voltage products in your state, right? So about half the states in this country require a low voltage license, right? So anything under 48 volts or whatever, you would need a low voltage license. And then there's different classifications. Like, so for Minnesota, there's 3 classifications. There's a level 1, level 2, or tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So for instance, if you're in Minnesota, I feel sorry for you guys. Like anybody that's over there, they've got class 1, which is like anything that's below 4.1 amps can be, if you're using a power supply, even if it's UL listed. If you're using over 4.1 amp, all of a sudden you go into tier 2, which is a higher certification. It requires 4 years under an electrician of training and stuff like that, right? So, but there are some states that it's definitely more difficult if you were to install this stuff and you're not low voltage certified. But more than half of the states don't require anything.
Do you know if it's in Kentucky? Most of the states that you got to have it are your liberal states. Them are the ones that you're going to have to need it. In Kentucky, I know we have a liberal governor, but that's about all we have is liberal. So the more liberal you are, the more likely you got to have a license.
Yeah, so I will tell you right now, DC, Connecticut, Minneapolis, Las Vegas, actually, they're not very liberal, but they're extremely, because of all the electricity going on in there, they're extremely regulatory towards it. So Minneapolis and Las Vegas are probably the worst ones to get certification electrically to install anything, landscape or anything otherwise low voltage. But,
so do the NEC regulations that government permanent lighting with Christmas light that has been somewhat unregulated because it's temporary? I'm sure, and I know Christmas lights, they may be, that's probably 1 or 2 houses burning down and killing somebody. It's away from getting more regulation. And I do know, like Washington is starting to crack down on it a little bit too.
Yeah, Washington and Oregon are starting to get very serious about it. But you have to remember, this is all high voltage stuff up there. That you're doing Christmas lights with 110 volts. Nothing's pre-terminated and stuff like that. So those states, pretty soon it's likely they're going to be forced into buying pre-terminated socket spools. Like they're going to need 2 foot, 5 foot, 10 foot, 25 foot pre-terminated in, so that they're not doing any cutting. Because at least in that case, you can you're not cutting and splicing and having open ends. You may not have as much of a problem, but some people have gone so far as to say they're going to have to change out the light bulbs to low voltage and put a transformer on there in order to avoid regulation. But who knows?
And they're working on that stuff too. So I know S3 is, when I talk to them at Transworld, and it's not what you think. Every week a customer tells me we are the only company that answered the phone. Yep, that's usually what happens, for sure. Is there a limit to call back customers after you put your estimate in? The third time is a charm, but don't return my calls after the third message. Somebody here's this is I want to hit on this one, because this one Greg Townsend, I seen he was in here earlier, and this is a good question, because this question here goes whether you're doing Christmas lights, permanent lighting, pressure washing, whatever. I'm at a crossroad in my business. We have lost 25 jobs in the last 2 months because we are so booked. Now trying to determine if we get another truck on the road, or can we make the money back? Help. So I'm going to give my thought, and then I'm going to let Tyler give the smart, educated thought on this. So this is what I always tell. So Greg Townsend just called me the other day, and he's having the same issue. He's not booked that far out. And actually Fred used to come with me this one here. And so this is when I always tell people, when you get 2 weeks booked out, you got to do one of two things. You either got to start raising your prices, and I mean raise them, not just a quarter, but we're raising them, or you got to put another truck on the road. You got to figure out how to get 2 more people or another person out on the road, because you will lose a lot of money by not doing this. This is important that, and a lot of times this comes from you not charging enough in the beginning. It's like I said, a lot of people want to quit marketing, which if you're losing that many jobs, that's probably going to happen. So you either got to figure out how you can get another person on that truck and maybe run it on the weekends, or you can figure out how to do this. I got Mr. Wise Guys. He runs 2 crews off of the same truck. 1 week they work 3 12s, the next week they work 4 10s, and then they switch back and forth, and that's how they're able to run that truck 7 days a week and being able to do a lot more and not have to pay a bunch of overtime. And so it's important that we make sure that we understand, and how do we make sure that we keep getting paid and not losing customers, because you will start getting bad reviews, and that's not a good thing either. So what's your thought about losing 25 jobs in 2 months booked
Yes,
out?
I mean, I think you hit the two biggest solutions to it. I would say set up a system, right? I actually mentioned this to Fred last year. If you guys know anything about Fred, his phone's ringing off the hook all the time during Christmas. Leads are not a problem for him, right? So the problem is either hiring enough staff or laborers to install the jobs, or 2, charging enough to kind of push back the amount of jobs you're going to convert into actual work. So I would say set up a system where if you get a week out or something like that, if you're booking a week out, you know that you're charging X amount per that, any job past that. So anytime you're booking more than 7 days out, you increase it a little. When you start booking 14 days out, you set another tier. And it's like, hey, when we're booking 14 days out, this is our price here. And so all your call takers need to understand, it's like, hey, unless they're getting booked this week, then any following week or whatever, it goes up. Every price, just keep going, right? Like let it go longer or whatever, book out further. But every time you book it out, the price goes up further. So it'll
And what's
slow
cool
down the
about
amount.
this is you'll be like, man, I know Fred used to be like, man, that person paid me $1,000. I got $10 a foot, $12 a foot. And it's like, yeah, because they're willing to pay it. You got to ask it. You have not because you ask not. And it's so true. You got to ask it. You got to be able to be confident in it. And when you're booked out that far, people want to use you because they know you must be good if you're booked out that far. So it doesn't always mean that, but that's usually what it comes back to. Which is better, Inception or Million?
I mean, it's kind of a loaded question. I helped design Minlian, but here's the deal: Inception, everything has kind of its pluses and minuses. Inception's main thing that they have that Minlian doesn't is they have a cover that goes over the lights. Okay, you still see the wire and everything because it's a clear cover, but what it is it's something that makes it look a little more finished and polished. The downside is it costs approximately, when you compare apples to apples buying the same product, or of the same pieces, components, and stuff like that, it costs about 40 to 45% more uh, for the materials. So it is more expensive. The other thing is Minlian has brighter lights because they're a lighting company, right? So they tend to have a better light, but they're actually very similar. If you know how to install one, you know how to install the other. So as far as installation goes, it's the same. The track for Inception is very kind of restrictive in how you can mount it. It's basically a track that's a flat device, and then a flat channel, and then on the back of it, it's got two-sided tape, which you can put screws through or whatever. But you have to mount it against a flat surface in order to have the lights pointing the opposite direction. Minlian allows you to. They have a two-piece bracket, so you can either mount it the opposite direction. You can mount it 90 degrees pointing one way, 190 degrees pointing the other way. So you have 270 degrees option of what direction you want to point the lights. So it's just a little bit different. And I wouldn't say that you have to sell just one product. If you want to sell two, if you want to sell Inception and Minlian, such as what I do, then you just keep it and you price accordingly, right? So Inception, if somebody wants Inception, they're just going to end up paying. I'm not going to sell a job, for instance, not to get too much in numbers or whatever, but I won't sell an Inception job for under $30 a foot. It's just not going to happen. There's no money to be made if you don't. And typically, when offering it to a customer, and letting them make the choice between the two and the price points, they'll pick what they want.
Yep. Is there risk to do Christmas lights? Not really. Well, yeah, actually, there's a lot of risk to it. Falling off the roof is pretty risky. Falling off of a ladder is pretty risky. Really thinking about getting into it for revenue for Christmas lights for my landscape business. Easy to get into or tough to learn? It's not that hard to learn. We have in-person training so that you actually get hands-on if you want to do that. The hardest part with Christmas lights is learning how to get customers and close the tickets. That is the hardest part that I deal with people. And that is something that we go very in depth on and teach a lot about it. So that way you understand sales and know where to go at with it. So there is some training classes coming up. If you want to go, the kpwtrain.com will take you to the page. We are having a permanent lighting class also coming up in a couple weeks in June 2nd and 3rd. And then if you want the pressure washing classes 3rd and 4th. And Tyler is coming in to teach that class. I did put up some permanent lighting the other day, and I only called him, I think, 2 or 3 times. Maybe a couple more times before that, too, because I bought the stuff for it. So that way I at least have installed one set before I can help show. But it wasn't that hard. It does take a little bit of time. The biggest thing about the class is learning, how to set it up, how to wire stuff, how to make it look right. And I actually installed it 2 different ways because I wanted to see what the difference was. On my house, we have gutters and then it goes up. So on the gutter side, I pointed them into the house, and on the non-gutter side, I pointed them down. I don't know. Both of them look good, but it is something neat. The kids like it. And now I get to play with an app to show them how to do it. So, but to answer your question, Christmas lights is super profitable. A lot of landscapers get into it and don't make money because they don't know how to charge. That is probably the hardest mindset that you have to overcome. You're thinking about a $50 yard cut, not a $2,000 light job that you get to take the lights home when you're done. So this is something that is tough for people to grasp at and make that happen. So Tristan asked, what's a good average ticket for permanent lighting?
So, I would say if it's a general house or so, it'd be about $5,000 to $6,000 or so. So, like I said, there is a price point that can definitely cause people sticker shock, but there are ways to, help with that as well. But in general, there's basically $5,000-6,000 if you got a house that's roughly 175, 200 feet or so. And then bigger jobs, like I have a job that's coming up in a week or so. It's a bigger job. It's about $13,000 or so, and it's still a house. But commercial jobs can really go high. I've got a couple of jobs lined up that are in the 100,000 plus mark at this point, but we're doing something to alleviate that cost in leasing the lights and such.
So what have you done to be able to get permanent lighting jobs so far? Marketing.
So a couple things. So I focus right now. I focus primarily on getting commercial lighting jobs, right? Because I do think there's a lot more money in commercial lighting, and honestly, it takes no time to put them up. I can put up permanent lighting in the same time you can put up temporary lighting, but I get paid a lot more to do it, right? So on commercial jobs, you can just run across. If you can walk on the roof and everything, go right across on a parapet roof or something like that, and you just stick it down and clip the lights in and move on, right? So I would say that. So I actually forgot the question. Now that I got, what was the question? Sorry.
How to get customers?
Jobs. Okay. Yeah. So I search for property managers. So you can actually go around and find, like, let's say your local King Supers stores and stuff like that, and I can find out who the property manager of that store is. Maybe that store doesn't say who it is, but I can go around to another another King Supers and another one, and eventually one of those will list who that place is managed by, right? Online, just searching on Google. When I find out who the property manager is, I go into that property manager, and guess what? They list all 35 different places that they property manage across Colorado or whatever, right? So you can either call them up, you can send out a postcard to them or whatever. That's one great way to do it. Another is think about businesses that can actually get use of it right now outside of Christmas, right? So who's operating at night that can benefit from lights? Casinos, bars, just things like that. Right, like that definitely can use lighting and help enhance the energy in their type of business at night. And I just go in there and then you can actually talk to them, try to find owners, hire a sales guy to do this or whatever, walk around, do that. You can also do a social media advertising and stuff. That generates leads, but just so you know, the typical cost seems to be around $500 or so. I've not actually done that myself. I don't see a need to do it right now. I'm generally finding other leads elsewise. One thing I actually, and anyways, but just so you know, it seems to be about $500 or so to pull in a lead from social media. So just so you have an idea of what it costs to pull in a lead, or I mean, not a lead, but an actual job, something that converts to a job. And then one other thing I did was I partnered with, I happen to have a contact that does low voltage security systems and smart home conversions across my state. So he's the second largest in the state of Colorado. He converts 1,300 homes in the state of Colorado. So I talked to him and I said, here's the deal. You're in all these builders, all these high-end builders, Lennar, Shea Homes, yada, yada. And I said, so you are basically servicing the same people I'm going after. I have a product that I think you'd like, and I just want to show you it or whatever. And he's like, okay. So I end up putting it on his home, and he liked it so much. He's like, yeah, we're definitely offering this. So just if you can swing by, talk to my sales guys, give us some brochures and stuff, we'll start pitching it. And the agreement that we had was, okay, we'll go ahead and you sell it to us for whatever price you're going to charge the customer. We're just going to upmark the charge, by basically $10 a foot is what they get. They don't do anything other than sell the job, but they get $10 a foot. And the reason why they're able to sell it for, we'll say like $35 a foot or something like that. The reason why they're able to is because they're targeting a different type of customer, a non-educated customer that doesn't know the product exists, right? So that not somebody who's going to go around who's going to price shop 10 different companies and try to find the best price and not realize what kind of service they're getting or whatever. So there's they're basically, they get to talk to customers that after they purchase their home, right? Like they walk them through, showing them how to use all the smart features in their house, and then they say, hey, by the way, so we have this product here that you can add as well. And then they show them the brochures and stuff, and if they're interested, then they give them a quote, and they do the quoting process for us, and then they just say, hey, so we need this job done, and then we install that job.
That's a good question, and that was a good answer. Yes, the acquisition cost is about 500 for a $5,000 average ticket. So
Mm-hmm.
this is this is a question that I had asked. Do you ever get callbacks for lights blowing out? How common is that? Do you have a warranty?
Yeah, so just so you know, the products I use, the warranty for Inception is 3 years on product. Warranty for Midland is 1 year on product. So that's the manufacturer's warranty. What I would also say is I don't really care about the warranty of the manufacturers. It's not going to dictate what I put as a warranty on my own company. So my company provides a 5 year warranty for parts and 1 year on labor. We can't be held responsible if a manufacturer doesn't make parts properly. So the reason why I chose Midland is because I knew as my primary as cost of the product one, and reliability as the other primary factor. So it's not very common for a light to go bad. Lights do fail in other things. So I don't want to name brands that have lots of issues, but the reality is there are a lot of products out there. Do your due diligence before you choose whatever brand you're going with. You could end up with a nightmare as far as like the amount of maintenance you have to do under warranty. So
You
if you
mean
pick a
like the
product that you like,
RGB lights that came out last year for the C9 bulbs?
yeah, exactly. Well, those definitely. I know they kept me on customer service calls for at least 80 hours throughout the year. So, like, look, I was not super fan of it. People still liked them. I think their expectations were just higher than what they were, right? So,
Right.
and it's hard to tell how many problems people actually had, or how many people were uh, actually breaking the rules and putting more than 100 lights on a line or something like that and blowing out the controller or something like that, because we got a lot of that also. So it's difficult to say. I mean, anybody who was selling that product definitely had customer service.
They're
But
still
no,
up on my house right now, and they're turning yellow from already. So the plastic is turning yellow.
I actually mentioned that to them immediately. In fact, it turned yellow within a month of being up.
Mm-hmm.
I was super disappointed in the quality of the product. I will say, like, it's nice. I mean, 100%, like, you're going to find a customer that can use that product, right? They have for instance, so my brother did a tree, and it was a very large tree in a city park. And kids came over to play with the remote control and change the colors and stuff like that. So for a feature item, there's nothing simpler than something like that to create like a wow factor. But yeah, I would charge high if you were installing that product, because expect a lot of customer service. As far as the Midland permanent lighting, like I said, I do believe that it is by far the most reliable product on the market, and Inception's a close second, right? I mean, I don't think that they use the same controllers, so that's the same. It really comes down to the light sets. Midland has incredible light sets, and they have for years. So it's not common for a bulb to ever go bad, by the way. More common would be a bad connection that causes something to act funky, or trip breaker, or like trip GFI or something like that. Those
Right.
are more common.
Jeremy put businesses sales go up around 30% after we install lights for them. So he did a bunch of marijuana dispensaries, and they said their sales had went up 30%. Like two or three of them that he did said that all their sales had went up because now it's more lit up, and it's more, it's back to how can you help sell this stuff better than just selling a product. If we sell the product, you're probably not going to sell very much of it. But if you sell this and say, hey, the businesses that we've done have went up 30%, they made more sales by us doing this, and you got proof of it. No, you don't want to do it if you don't have proof. He's had like several businesses come back and they have all said that. And so it is something to think about of how do we sell this stuff. And so, it's about you're not selling the lights just like you're not selling Christmas lights, you're not selling pressure washing. One thing that you're selling, a huge thing, is you're selling security, right? More light, the more safer that you're going to keep people away. So one thing that's huge on this is selling security is a big selling feature for permanent lighting. 3 reviews away from 200, 1 year, 9 months. That's good. Asking for those reviews are always good. Always good. LED strips, are those any good?
So it really depends on where you're getting them from. I mean, everything that you're going to find that's on, let's say, like Amazon and stuff like that, that's all stuff that's more indoor rated. And even the stuff that is sold outdoor is, if you get like a year or so, I mean, trust me, we've gone to houses where we pull all the old LED strip lighting down because it no longer functions after about a year or two. So it just depends. If you're buying it from like Minlian makes LED strip lighting too. We don't stock it, but just so you know, that if they make it, and if there was a demand for it, we would stock it because I know Minlian makes quality products, so we wouldn't have to worry about it failing. So,
what about the troubleshooting process for permanent lighting?
well, the troubleshooting process is fairly simple for most people because they call me and then I just kind of walk them through a lot of this stuff. But I would say it is something that the more you get into it, the faster it gets. And the beginning part of it is not so bad because I'm a phone call away as far as Minlian goes. If you're with Inception too, they have great customer service through Reinders. I also help Inception customers as well. Um, Outside of that, you're kind of relying on the manufacturer and how good the tech support is with those particular companies, because that's your learning curve, right? You'll learn as you get instructed on what to check, what to test, what to find out. It's not like you usually ever need a voltmeter or anything like that. In some cases you might, but most of the time it's just kind of like, hey, can you take a picture of this so I can see it? Or can you take a screenshot of your phone so that way I can see what it looks like? And then I look at it and I can say, okay, so it looks like what's going on is you're not in the right network. So let me show you how to go in the right network, and click this button, click that, whatever. So something like that. It's usually pretty simple.
Gotcha. I've been listening to your podcast every day for about a month now. Your wife and kids probably hate my sound. And launched my business 3 weeks ago with a goal of $1,000 profit in a month. And I just closed a $2,300 job that I start tomorrow. That's awesome. How long? The warranty is 1 year is the manufacturer warranty. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, in jobs like this, right, where same with Christmas lights. When in jobs like this where you're selling the product or whatever, and the manufacturer puts on some sort of crap warranty, they could certainly put on a bigger warranty, but it would probably increase the price of the product, right? So just include your own warranty in it, right? The product isn't that expensive compared to the overall cost of the job. And so, which means that if you're going to out there and install, if something needs to be warranted, the product isn't the expensive part. That's not the part you really care about being warranted. It's the labor and the trip that cost you. Sending out labor, time, especially during Christmas season when it's basically loss of opportunity where you could be installing another job because you're so busy. That's the stuff you don't want to deal with, right? So the cost of the material is not really a factor.
Well, and some of that too, you could also do part of your for a warranty is part of a maintenance fee that you come out and you're charging that maintenance fee, and that could be part of the 5 year warranty. If it's just like my air conditioner. I had to get it serviced every year for them to keep that warranty for the coverage of the warranty. And if I didn't, then I was taking that risk on myself if something happened to it. So it's important that you could put something into place, and you want to come back to that house, especially if you want to do landscape lighting or some other type of lighting and add more lighting to that customer's house. And and you're doing the updates and you're doing all of that stuff, and because there is updates for these lights.
Yeah, and so as Geiman mentioned, really there's only two business models, and I haven't really mentioned like in specific, but there's really only two business models. If you sell it, you need to figure out a way to get a reoccurring revenue. Selling and walking away is not a business plan. Okay, so selling it and trying to pitch a maintenance plan, tying it into warranty. That's typically the way you do it, right? If you want anything warranted after a year, you need to continue to pay for a maintenance plan or whatever, right? And here's the cost of the maintenance plan, whether it's 5% of the overall job or whatever the case is. Um, the other way that, and this is something that's very new to the industry, nobody's been doing it really. There's one guy that I found. This is where I got the idea from. He wasn't calling it a leasing program. He was calling it, "I'm getting too old and I don't like going up ladders" program, right? So he, but I once he was explaining it to me, I'm like, holy crap! I explain that one more time, right? Like, what are you doing? And so I figured it out, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to help you out because you just literally unlocked a gem here, but your price points are way off, right? So I helped him out. He is like, I've got 7 jobs I need to get bids on. I'll try it, but I'm really concerned about like whether I'm going to sell these jobs or not if I increase the price that much. I'm like, trust me, you have to have a bigger lens. You got to understand what can you actually sell this product for, as opposed to why you're selling it and what your rationale is for your pricing. And so he sold it. All 7 jobs sold, right? So he was like, okay, I owe you a lot because every job from here on out, I'm going to make 40% more profit, right? So it was a big change for him. But ultimately, what it did is it's what made me decide to open up a company. It's leasing on commercial products. It's amazing, right? So when you think about it, the first year you charge a product. Let's say in Christmas lights, you put up, we'll say across America, the average Christmas light might be like $8 a foot is what people charge or so. And I would say educated people charge that amount. Okay. Certainly a lot of people that go out of business charge less, but $8 a foot or so. And so, what I'll do is I'll say, look, you can have these lights for year round, and they're permanent lighting. They do cool things. They can move, they can change colors. You can pick whatever kind of patterns you want. You can do all sorts of different things, and you can use it for security lighting when it's not a holiday season or whatever, right? It makes it easy. You can support your favorite baseball team, basketball team, whatever, it doesn't matter. You explain what the product is and make them understand that like this is an upgraded product, right? And you're going to pay a little more the first year, but you'll pay less every year after that than temporary lighting, right? So if you were to sell it, and you could lease the lights to commercial property for, let's say, $12 or so, and maybe you don't make much because the materials cost so much, but what you are doing is you're getting it so that way you're installing the product. They're going to fall in love with them, and then for them to renew it, you drop the price to say $7 a foot, just under what it would cost for them to do temporary lighting. So when are they ever going to cancel you at that point? Right? They got a better product and it's cheaper than temporary lighting. So it's and this guy, just so you know, this gentleman in 5 years working 4 months out of the year. That's it. 4 months out of the year, he has put up over 200,000 feet of permanent lighting at the wrong price, and he was still very successful. So interesting.
So, with that, if you want to learn how to do permanent lighting, you want to learn how to sell it, you want to learn we are actually going to install it on a house. It's a 1-story house. I'm probably going to rent a lift just so that way we can do some lift training too with it. So that way, if you've never ran a lift, you can do this all from ladders. You can do it however you want to do it. It's a little bit harder than Christmas lights of getting on the roof, but you can do however you want. And so if you want to go check out that training right now, you can go to right up here, and it's under the Cincinnati training is the one that it is. Any other class dates other than June 2nd and 3rd? I don't know if we will. The one in Indianapolis may get some permanent lighting stuff too. That is definitely Christmas lights, but that one I'm not 100% sure on that class of what will happen on that one. Fred, we can do it on Fred's house too, or his little rental house, because it's real easy. It's lower than the house we're actually going to do. But it is something that if you want to, like I say, KPW train, you do need to go to the Cincinnati one. That is the one that Tyler is coming into, and it will be Friday and Saturday. And it is all day Friday is going to be how to install it and go put it up. And then Saturday, we'll talk about pricing, and then we'll also talk about how to sell stuff and different ways of doing marketing. So it's my normal marketing class. Normally, I do some stuff with DISC and love languages now. I don't know if that one will be. It kind of depends on how we end up on Friday if we need more time for the permanent lighting. I don't know how long is it going to take. We don't know. We're going to find out. We've never done a class like this. He kind of did one in Florida, the short one. But this one we're actually going to go out, install, and do. There is a number of limited seats that we will be able to have just because it's so, there is. So make sure you get signed up. Why would one sell Christmas lights and permanent lighting versus just permanent lighting? That's a good question. We'll answer that here shortly. But yeah, so if you want to go check it out, and here's the thing about this class, I always tell Paul Gardner is one that he likes the code of like he does pretty well for himself. I think he did like 12 million. I think last year. I think he's all right. But he loves to go to training, and it's when you go there and meet those people in the networking behind the training. So it is important. It's just like networking with Tyler. Every time I'm around Tyler, it's like I feel stupid, and he makes me feel smart sometimes, and he helps me get smarter. And Tyler's an awesome dude. Last year we had a training at his house. He had some great food that he cooked in the smoker, and so it was fun to do the training there. So with that, let's go back here, and we'll answer a couple more questions, and then we will do it. Is it on the website? The class cost and everything. Yes, it is on that website. There is a couple different options if you do pressure washing, but mostly if you're wanting the permanent lighting, that's going to be a big focus for this class. Will be the permanent lighting for this class. There is pressure washing on Sunday. That'll get that's a whole class if you want to learn how to do pressure washing. And obviously the marketing is Saturday. That's for pressure washing and the other one. And then pressure washing, we do have a house we'll go clean, and it's a whole day of pressure washing. Why would one sell Christmas lights and permanent lighting versus just permanent lighting?
All right. So a couple of things. So permanent lighting in some very large, let's say like really restrictive HOAs and stuff, it may just not be allowed in their HOA, right? So they may not have that. Second of all, the cost difference can be fairly, large, right? So permanent lighting on an average job is $5,000-6,000 or something like that, whereas temporary lighting might be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1,500 to 2,000 or so for an average job, right? So that's a big difference right there. Some people just don't have the money or don't want to spend that much money at one time for the lights or whatever, even though in the long picture they could make more money. And finally, some people just love the nostalgia of Christmas bulbs. Okay, you're never going to take that away. So you will have a group of people, especially I would say on houses, not as much commercial, but you're going to have a group of people that will absolutely say, well, I want to, when I come home, I want to see those bulbs sticking out of my house. So
yeah, and some people will do permanent lighting and Christmas lights because they want the bulb sticking out, right?
yep.
What is permanent lighting?
Yeah. So permanent lighting, so it's funny that they actually even call it permanent lighting. The reason why is because of the origin of when it started. It was for permanent holiday lighting for Christmas light replacements, right? But what it's becoming more is architectural lighting, but it's basically roof line lighting. It's lighting that goes underneath the roof line, in front of the roof line, under the shingles area, on the gables, drip edge area or whatever. But it's lighting that's permanently installed designed for, roughly the length of life of an electronics, 8 to 10 years or so. But you never take it down. You just leave it up and repair it if needed, or just leave it up and just watch it until 10 years. And if you get enough failures or it's getting old enough, you just replace the system and get a new one. Kind of like an AC unit or something, right?
When is the Indy class? I believe the Indy class is July 10th, 11th, something along that weekend. It's the weekend after 4th of July weekend, I believe. So with that, what are some words of wisdom for people that are trying to grow and scale a business?
Um, Being too cheap is definitely going to ensure failure, right? Meaning, like, you got to be smart about your money. You definitely don't want to waste it, but if you don't think that advertising is going to help you, you look at a business and you say, well, I don't want to advertise that, I could lose like $2,000 or something like that. And it's like, yeah, you do have to understand it's a business. It's a legitimate business. You can't just like go out and get drum up all your own work. It's not really feasible. So that's certainly, I think, one of the biggest things. And Jason and I were talking about this before, but my brother in his area, there's three different people that have three different ways that they attract business. Definitely, the one that attracts the highest price point is the one that advertises and does ads, right? The other ways of doing business, they certainly stay busy and stuff, but they're not making as much money because they're not paying for those ads. And you may look at it saying, well, the ad cost can be subtracted out of the profits or whatever. It's like, absolutely, take those out. You'll still see that they're making more money than the other people. So
And one
can't
thing
be
I
too.
didn't say about Tyler is a big numbers guy. Like he knows numbers like no other. So that's why he's so good at this, and not at this here, but at looking at businesses to see if they are successful or not by just a quick glance of your numbers. And as a person that hates doing that stuff, what's one tip for making sure that we know what our numbers are?
Um, Find out what your overhead is, right? So you need to know what your overhead is. Otherwise, you can't price a product appropriately or service.
Yep.
So, I mean, down to literally, it's not that hard. It'll take you guys, less than a day, no matter how complicated your business is, to find out exactly what your overhead is: credit card fees, cost of material, gas, insurance, all that stuff. Add it all together. Figure out what your overhead is, so that way you know how much every job is costing you to actually perform. Right? Like if you're doing a service, if you're doing it doesn't matter if it's pressure washing or Christmas light installation. If you know what the overhead is, and you know that to show up at this door, it's going to cost me $172. You know that is essentially what your baseline cost is. And if you walk out of there and don't get a sale, or you're doing a $250 job, like what's the point?
Right.
So
Yep. All righty. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Again, if you want to go check out, you can go to King of Pressure Wash. You can go to christmaslights.io. That's all going to take you, and then go to in-person training. It'll all take you to the same place. This is just a little bit easier to type in. That's the only reason why I did that. But I hope you all have a great night, and we'll see you all later.
yeah, by the way, you're looking great and nice haircut.
Well, yeah, I need to get a haircut.